Hey, welcome to Tank Talk. I'm your host, Bob Tankard. And this evening's guests are two lovely ladies. We have Jill Deminy, I got that last name right.
Got it.
And we have Amanda Zorf. And they both work for Hospice, right?
Yes, Hospice and Palliative Care of Martha's Vineyard.
Right. We were talking earlier about hospice and how a lot of times people, when you bring hospice name up, they get a little nervous and afraid because they think of the end coming.
Oh, yeah.
But it's really a positive organization and an uplifting to both the person that's going on to the next place and the people that are around. Listen, tell us a little bit about Jill.
Well, I came onto the island permanently in 2020, right in the pandemic, amazingly, was hired at Hospice and live here year-round. And I originally came here in the, I like to say, the late 1900s. And I was a candy maker then.
Candy.
And I had a little candy store. I used to come back and forth between New Orleans, but really knew as a child that New England was for me.
Yeah.
And just made a point of my entire life working towards that. And I'm a licensed counseling social worker is my title.
Great.
And
we need it on the island.
well, there's a lot, right? And so it's really a lifelong dream to live in New England and be on this island. I wasn't. It wasn't until I was 20 years old that I even saw the ocean. So every day
wait a minute, living in New Orleans?
No, I grew up in Poland, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
But I lived in New Orleans for 20 years.
Okay.
But yeah, so it doesn't escape me on any single day being here.
All right.
Yeah.
And Amanda?
Yeah, so I've been on the island about 6 years.
Okay.
And I'm a social worker, LICSW, Licensed Independent Counseling Social Worker. I've been in the field of social work for about 15 years now, and most of my work has been in the medical aspect. So working in ICUs, in hospitals, clinics. I did at the way beginning of my social work career. I worked with Holocaust survivors in New York City, and landed back here 6 years ago, working for the hospital, and then moved over to hospice, which is really where my true passion is. Working.
You enjoy the Vineyard?
I love living here. I love it. It's beautiful.
I was just saying to Jill before you came.
Yeah.
That most people came here for 15 minutes to the Vineyard and wound up living here for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Is there something about the island that grabs people?
Yep.
It's a special
it grabbed my
place.
mother.
Yeah.
And back we came here, the first time she came was in 1958, and she brought us up here on a vacation, her and my dad, in 1959. I was 13 at the time. And the next thing I knew was my father was driving me up here in 1961 to move up here. And I said, wow. By that time, it wasn't like it is now. It was only like 4,200 people year-round then on the island. In the summer times, it might have gotten up to 30,000, 25, 30,000. Yeah. But now, it's a lot there. But it's still beautiful. It's still nice. And you still can find a bunch of people you can gather with or privacy.
Absolutely.
And that's what I like.
I have little kids, so raising little kids here has been really great.
It's the best.
Really great.
It's the best.
Really special.
Listen,
So,
I've been on the island a long time, but I've never heard of Camp by the Sea. Now, talk to me a little bit about that.
Most people probably haven't heard of Camp by the Sea because it's brand new. It's a pilot.
Okay.
We are offering a grief camp, which most people would say, grief and camp don't really go well together. But we believe that children and families should be able to enjoy time together and experience joy even while grieving. So there are camps all across the country and the world for people who are grieving, and it's really about connecting the folks on the island.
But let me ask you a question. Would these people go to this camp prior to or after?
So it's if somebody has lost somebody in their lifetime. So it doesn't have to be this year or even a year ago. It could be within the child's life.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be a mom, dad, sister, brother. It can be your cousin, your auntie, grandma, someone, a best friend. It can really be anyone who's experienced a significant loss in their life.
Where would a place like this be? When you think about a camp by the sea, we often think of, having tents out there by the ocean
Oh, right,
or
right,
someplace
like bunking out there,
around there
right.
by the ponds or something by the sea. Tell me how this would look, because when I got your information, I'm looking and saying, where's this going to be? How is this going to fit in? Tell me a little bit about.
Well, we were really blessed to get 2 grants that have helped us really make this vision possible this year. Hospice and Palliative Care Martha's Vineyard has been wanting to do a grief camp since 2019. And the Martha's Vineyard Community Foundation and the Slough Farm Foundation both provided the fundage. But Slough Farm Foundation is also providing the venue.
Wow.
And I don't know if you've ever been to Slough Farm.
No, where is that?
It's in Katama, so
Okay.
it's by the sea, which most places on the island are,
Is it
right?
down by the big farm down there?
Yep.
Yeah, off
Okay.
Herring Creek.
Okay, off Herring Creek
It's a
Road?
beautiful
Okay.
place.
And it's a stunningly beautiful venue. It's got a big, huge central building that has
Right.
a yoga studio, a fiber art studio, music
It
studio.
used to be a big farm down there,
Right.
but it was something prior to this. It was.
I'm not sure, but
It's like sitting out in the middle of the field.
it's a working
Yeah,
farm.
yeah. Okay, that's the
it
same
has,
place. Yeah.
So there's going to be farm animals.
Okay.
They have cows, and we're hoping the little baby chickens are going to be
Ready.
there in time
Okay.
for camp. And we're going to. They're being generous to allow us to use the ceramic studio.
Is this an overnight?
It's just going to be a day camp.
A day
right
camp,
now.
okay.
Right. It's going to be from 9 to 5 on
Oh.
October 19th.
Okay.
So it's coming up.
So wait a minute. You said that's when it opens?
That's going to be the day. This year we're doing a 1-day camp.
It's one day. Okay.
Right, and it'll be that entire day. So people will come in the morning and register. Well, they'll sign. They'll get checked in. The registration for the families will end on October 7th. And
How does if a person wanted to, once they see the show and the information that you probably have already sent out,
Yep.
how does the person register? What do they have to bring?
Yep. Yep.
If you found out that you say that you can accommodate 20 people, say, but you got 40 people signed up.
We will make it happen.
it's going to work.
Okay.
We're going to make it work. Yeah, yeah. So people can go onto our website, which is Hospice and Palliative Care of MV. I have to get that exactly correct. .org, and the application for families and campers is on the website. We also are being fully run by volunteers. So we're still looking for volunteers to sign up, and the application is also on our website.
And what does the volunteer have to have? Other than 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 legs, and being able to.
And a passion to want to help out. It doesn't just have to be working directly with children. It could be, somebody directing traffic down to taking down the stuff at the end of the day. It doesn't have to necessarily be hands-on, but that is great too. We have grief counselors that will be there, buddies, as we call them, for the campers to have if they need to take a break, and just look out for them. We're all, the goal is to really have the campers and their families back.
Is it any type of a one-on-one with some of the campers? Would there be one-on-one counseling? Would it be one-on-one participation with them, or will it always be in a group form?
Well, it'll definitely be accommodated if
Okay.
someone needs to separate from the group, because as they explore grief or a memory or something, it could be triggering that they get a little emotional. And so there will be supports in that way. There's going to be activities geared towards the families together. There's going to be activities geared towards the children. The children can be ages 5 to 18. So they'll be probably split up a little bit too, because a 17-year-old and a 6-year-old are going to be having different experiences. And a lot of the activities are, like we said, fun, like ceramics and farm animals and such. But there will be times where we will be having the opportunity to give a safe space for the families and the children to discuss the person that's died and how that's affecting their lives.
What does a person have to bring? What do they have to bring? Is it just themselves?
Yeah.
Is it anything that they need to bring physically to the program?
Really just themselves. The one thing we have asked people is to bring a picture of their loved one, because we'll do some intros where people can really share and talk about their loved one if they want. This is all voluntary. We don't force anyone to, of course, talk about it if they don't want to. And then we're going to do something called a memorial wall, and there's going to be a bunch of ceremonies, an opening and closing ceremony, lots of feel-good stuff. And we're also hoping for a lot of fun. We want to, we're envisioning some field day games and maybe even a family kickball game, face painting.
Now, let me ask you, you're talking about a day.
One day, yeah.
And I'm looking down, I'm saying, is that going to be enough?
Right.
But I understand that this is the pilot program first, and I know that you're experimenting with things, and you're going to put things together so that you can look at the program, evaluate the program, and then you can say, this is what we need to do the next step. Would it be another program this year? In other words, if say you did one in, say, October, and then you say, this is real good, we're going to try to do another one in March. Could it be like that? Well, or you'd have to say, we have to wait until we get refunded for the program to be able to do the same thing?
We're really lucky. In our hospice and palliative care, Martha's Vineyard, we have a bereavement counseling program that can support anyone on the island that's experienced a death in the last couple years, up to 13 months of one-on-one at no cost.
Even if
counseling.
they didn't use hospice services.
Right, you don't have to have had someone die on hospice care. But we do support people that have come on through hospice care too, while they're alive and then after their death, with when the grief. How do you adapt to that, like living with someone that's no longer there? That's a lot of what the work is. And for the youth specifically, we, Amanda and I were really lucky to get, we've been consulting with existing grief camps. We were able to attend the National Alliance of Childhood Grief Symposium in Denver and really network and make connections, attend workshops, and really learn more about specific experiences that youth have around grief.
And what are some of those experiences? When you're talking about what are kids, say a kid 5 years old, if it's a parent or a grandparent that he was close to, or a brother they were close to, I can imagine in my own mind that they may be suffering from the relationship that, mom or dad putting them to bed at night, and the hugs and the kisses and the things. Big brother playing games with them, or big sister doing things with them, or grandma being close, that they were able to go across the street to grandma's house or grandpa's house.
Yeah.
Now, I think of those things. How do they, at that age, begin to adjust to that missing link in their life?
Yeah. I mean, every child is so different, but a 5-year-old knows. We always encourage to use the word died or death when we're talking with children. We don't use pass away or loss or stuff like that, because they need concrete, right? They think very concretely. And so getting comfortable with that kind of language and really allowing for the child to express their sadness and normalizing it, because we've talked about this a lot, and we have clients who, when they were young, they weren't allowed. Nobody. Let's
protect the kids.
Let's
don't
protect
tell
them. Don't tell them about the death. Even let's shield them. They can't go to the funeral. Kids can't handle it. Well, that's not true. We've found over the years that is absolutely false. And kids need to experience it as well, and they have feelings just as we do. They just express them differently. And children do adapt, and there's a common theme. People say children are resilient, which is true. They really are. They do adapt, and they do find ways to cope with the death. But as long as they're being supported and
once they get to understand, I'm thinking about once they get to understand, a young kid, once they get to understand that's a part of life and you're going through a process, once they get to understand that, now you take the teenager who's already going through probably some of his own personal things, and now a death happens in the family, he's close to it. Now he's on a double whammy. What he's going through being a teenager, all the bing, bing, bings going on, and now that, how do you address these things so you can keep them on the straight and narrow without them having a dip in themselves.
Well, a lot of times grief can be very isolating. You know, people will not want to talk about it, or they're and people don't know how to react to someone that's had a death. You know, they don't want to maybe say something because they don't want to upset the person, even though a person's like, I didn't forget. You can say it to me. We all know that someone I loved died, or someone I cared about or mattered to me. But that isolation and that feeling all alone is a big part of what Camp by the Sea is going to really provide, that not just literally on the island too, that like, oh, I've seen that person at Net Results, or I've seen that person at school. I didn't know that someone died that they cared about. And just feeling that connection, especially locally, because we are such a tight-knit community on the, you know, the island community, to not feel alone and to feel safe, I think is the big picture there. Even for, like, at any age, you know, the teenagers, the young, and adults.
How does a person, I'm going to give you an example of myself.
Okay.
My mom was 89 years old. She was the mother of 10.
Wow.
I'm number 8 out of 10. Okay? But by the time she got sick, of the 10 of us, she had 3 boys. I had 2 older brothers that were 12 and 13 years older than me. Then it was 5 girls, and then it was me and 2 more girls. By the time she was getting ready to die, there was only 1 older brother left and myself, okay? And most of the girls, all the girls, lived around me. Or, you know, even though some were older, they all lived around me. And it was a funny thing, my dad, my brothers used to say to all the men, listen, if anything happens to one of us, you know, you guys got to step up and look after all the ladies, look after all the sisters, all, you know. So when my mother died, my father had already passed, my mother died, I don't think I was able to grieve because I had to make sure that the girls were all right.
Yeah.
I had to make sure the girls, and my mother had 30-something grandchildren, and she had another 30-something great-grandchildren, you know what I mean? So I seemed like I had to go through that whole process before. I remember going down to the beach one time in my truck, and it was like in the wintertime, right by and I sat down there and cried like a baby.
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't immediately. It was like, I think maybe like a month and a half after, when it was just like, bang, it hit me. And I'm saying to myself, why? Why did it take so long? And was it because I had the other things on my mind, and should I had gone to somebody prior to it?
Yeah. Well, and as grief counselors, we would say, why do you think it took you that long?
And you've identified
and
some of those reasons, right?
Yeah.
That you felt a responsibility and a role that you were stepping into that had been already discussed before your mother's death. But I think that's a good point, and that's why, you know, the person that's coming to grief camp, Camp by the Sea, that their grandmother died when they were 4 or 5, and now they're 16 or 17. Maybe another person's died that's brought that back up for them. And so that's why we say that died within their lifetime. It doesn't have to be something recent that you're going to just be, addressing like that.
Right.
It can be whenever that happened.
But you're talking about Camp by the Sea for people that have already had the experience. What about a program for people that haven't had it yet, that how it would benefit them if it was given to them prior to? If they were able to experience and go through the philosophy and all the training.
Right, like pre-bereavement, you would call that.
Pre, so that when it did happen.
Well, with our hospice patients, we do that. You know, we do that with all the families that we work with. We see our patients is the family. It's not just the person who is dying. It's the mother,
the unit, whatever that is,
the sibling, whoever their best friends, whoever it is, whoever needs it. So we do a lot of that prior to. To answer kind of what you're saying, I think education around grief and what that could feel like, look like, is something that could be talked about with children more.
Where else better to do that is in schools.
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't, being an ex-educator, a lot of times in educating, we waited too late.
Yeah.
We wait till they're a senior in high school, or wait till they're in the high school. No. You know, why can't we start talking about this at a younger age and progressively share with them, so that when something of that magnitude happens, they're a little bit better equipped in
Maybe
themselves
have some tools or
to be able to handle it, instead of just some people flipping totally out
Yeah,
and not being able to
you're
handle.
speaking our language. That's exactly
Right.
what we hope for. And I think by having something like Camp by the Sea, it kind of normalizes the experience that, we're all going to lose someone we love. Someone we love is going to die in our lives, and we're going to grieve.
When you talked about participation, and you talk about volunteers, how do you screen the volunteers?
Yeah,
Because you just can't have anybody come up in there and start.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, legally there's background inquiry and things like that. But we have when you go onto the link at our website and want to be a volunteer, there's a questions that you'll answer, and they are specific too. Have you had anyone die that's mattered to you, and who, or and so, because if it is too sensitive, or it might be overwhelming for a volunteer to come into that scenario, or be triggering, that might not be the best time. Or maybe they'll go and help with the parking, or the logistical back stuff of camp, because the camp is really there for the participants.
Okay.
And so we just want to, that would be some of the concerns around a volunteer. But otherwise, like Amanda said, anyone that really has an interest and has wants to work with children, or would like to be supportive in this way in the community.
Skills, a musician.
Oh yeah, musicians, photographers.
I will say we do interviews as well.
Okay.
So after we get the volunteers, we screen everybody. We interview all of them just to make sure it's the right fit for them, and see if there's anything that would be a problem.
Now I'm going to put you on the spot.
All right.
I'm going to make you guys TV personnel. We have a large population, especially some places on the island.
Yeah.
A lot of people come to Martha's Vineyard to retire. But when they come to retire, it doesn't mean they don't want to do something. They want to get involved, and usually they want to get involved in community activities.
Yeah.
Okay? My thing is, would it be possible for, say, it's like the both of you, or one of you, or another person and you, to do a program on television, once a month, once a week, or you might do it once a month to the housebound, to the elderly, to individuals that can't get out but want to help in some capacity, or you want to be able to teach them some of the things that will happen, and how can you give to them some of the skills that they need to be able to handle the grief when it comes their way.
Right. Well, we do have a ongoing volunteer program within the agency.
Within hospice.
And there's all sorts of people that are still capable and out and about, people that are maybe more challenged or are not able to be out and about, but can still contribute to the hospice organization and agency. That's part of the hospice model, is volunteer. So not just at Camp by the Sea. There are a lot of opportunities. And as far as starting a television show, we'll have to think about it. But we are definitely also going into the schools, because the thing we're all talking about is the fear of death, especially in our culture. And what helps mitigate fear is knowledge and experience, and you become less afraid. And so this is an opportunity to address that and learn about it. And so we have had a couple we had a grief group ongoing in the high school, we're going to start having some events, where we're going to reach out to the younger.
I was thinking
children
about
and-
like grade 6, 7, and 8. If you started within
Yep.
that group there, 6th grade, 7, and 8, where they're starting to be mature enough. 6th graders, they're starting to
Yeah.
they're out of the diapers and basically, and they're in big
Basically.
Fingers crossed.
big kids panties now, and they're starting to change, and now they need to begin to take on a little bit more responsibility. They want to think a little bit more adult-like, and when I think adult-like, I'm not saying, they got to think like a grown person, but to try to get an understanding of what's going to happen instead of having that fear that's going to sit
Right.
there. I just think that sometimes if we can take the fear out of things or
Yeah.
lessen the fear,
Right.
Right.
you might not, is this lessening it?
Yeah.
And giving them and plus giving them a place to go.
Yeah, and knowing that it's okay to be afraid too. It is
Yeah.
something that may be scary at times, to talk about death, but knowing that there's a place where you can do that and feel safe. And that's why I think at Camp by the Sea is also another part of our mission is to kind of make people feel safe and know that they can ask these questions and be
Listen.
supported.
And, peer-
go ahead, keep going.
Peer interactions.
Uh-huh.
So you have one kid that goes to Camp by the
Right,
Sea,
right.
and they learn that someone in their class's grandmother died, or their
Bingo.
their
Yeah.
puppy died, or their father's got cancer, whatever. They might say, I went to this camp, and you know what they told me, and so it's not just
Right.
it starts to network, and the children themselves will become more able to talk about it.
There's your
They'll-
disciples right there.
They'll turn to each other. I mean, the parents will see the
Right.
parents of other families that have had
Right.
these experiences,
Right.
and they'll feel, even whether they talk directly or they encounter each other, they're going to know there's that support, that there's that experience here, and it's like Amanda said, normalized, and validate their emotions, fear, sadness, joy. Joy. There's opportunity and joy that comes with death.
If there's one thing that you want to tell the audience before we leave, we got about a minute. What would that be?
Well, if you're interested in being a participant in the camp, you can go to our website and sign up, or you can email us as well at campbythesea@hospiceofmv.org. And you can always call if you have questions, if you're not sure if it's the right fit, but just want to know more about it. You can call us at our number at Hospice, and we really hope to see a great turnout of people from the community to have a fun day.
One thing, I tell you something. Right now I'm thinking, I said, I wish I could have a camera at your event filming what's going on, because I think that would be an important ingredient to have,
Yeah.
and to see what people are doing.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something, if permission,
Yes.
that we could try to work on, since it's a day.
We'll have to. I mean, it's not my decision, even though I'm co-director. But,
I know.
Well, confidentiality, of course, is
Oh
one
yeah,
of the most
yeah.
important
No,
things.
it would
so-
things. It would be things that
yeah.
we wouldn't naturally be
Yeah.
able to.
but I think that the takeaway is, yes, there's about grief, and we're talking about death, and that's what Camp by the Sea's sort of mission is. But really, it's a lot of fun. We've been able to visit other grief camps in person, and it's striking how much fun these people are having.
Well, listen, I want to say something. I want you guys to come back when that camp is over
Okay.
and tell us about the experience.
We would love
And if you don't, I'm gonna have to send somebody after you.
Uh-oh.
We'd be honored.
We're
to
going to
come
be
back.
pretty easy to find, too,
And
I
you have
think.
an open invitation to Tank Talk.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Oh, thank
All
you
right?
so much, Coach. This
Okay,
is
anytime,
really
anytime.
a great
so
opportunity.
I want to thank both of you.
Thank you so much.
And I want to thank you for tuning in to Tank Talk. Until next time, this is your host, Bob Tankard, saying good evening.